get started. My name is Deborah Smith. I am the Director for the Department of Economic and Community Development. Today I have with me from the DEC team, Dave Dieter, who is the Assistant Director, Veronica Fields, who is the Grant Administrator, and we also have our Chief of Staff, Renee Lamus, here with us. I want to welcome you all. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to come out and listen to our public hearing for our 2025 five-year consolidated plan and our fiscal year 2025 annual plan. Today I have with me Bill Wazaleski. He is from M&L Consulting Firm, and he'll be facilitating this meeting pretty much. So I'll turn it over to Bill.
Thanks, Deborah. So, and again, thank you all for attending this evening. We appreciate your input on the consolidated plan. So just a little bit about an overview of the evening. I'm going to do a brief PowerPoint presentation on the five-year consolidated plan, what it consists of, some of the findings that we had in our in the plan, and then I'll turn it back over to Deborah and Dave for a discussion on the annual action plan for 2025, and then we'll open it up for public comment. So again, welcome and thank you everyone for coming. As we said, this meeting is regarding the city's new HUD five-year consolidated plan and annual action plan. The consolidated plan is a five-year plan document related to and is required by HUD as part of its status as an entitlement community under the Community Development Block Grant Program, the HOME Program, and the ESG Program. And when we prepare a five-year consolidated plan, HUD requires us every 5 years to go back into the community and look and see how the needs have changed, any emerging needs as it relates to community development, economic development, housing, homelessness. And so we have a process that we work through with the city since January. And I just want to kind of go through the various components of the five-year consolidated plan. So we're required to do a housing and market needs analysis, as well as a housing and homeless needs assessment and a housing market analysis. The housing market analysis is really not a full-blown housing market analysis, but it's really updated demographic overview of key demographic points as provided by the census, and we really compared those to how things were 5 years ago. We also do very similar activity with the housing and homeless needs assessment using various data provided to us through the census and city agencies to measure homelessness within the city and how it compares 5 years ago. We also supplement that with what we call stakeholder consultations. So at the end of January and the first week of February, we carried out a total of 6 stakeholder sessions with various invited stakeholders throughout the city. We also did a series of secondary virtual meetings with stakeholders who couldn't make the first 2 in early February. Again, the reason is to provide another opportunity for stakeholders to provide input on changing demographics within the city. They also provide us with more things that we can't really see in the census data that may be emerging and not being picked up in the census. And all those things matter because really the key piece to the five-year consolidated plan is the strategic plan for 2025 through 2029. And really the strategic plan is critical because basically we work with the city to draft the needs. The strategic plan outlines the high priority needs within the city for housing, community development, economic development, and homelessness. And the reason that that's important is the city cannot allocate any of its federal sources over the next 5 years unless it's an identified high priority need. And so the demographic overview, the market analysis for both housing and homelessness, and the stakeholder consultation all helped inform that strategic plan. As I said, we're also doing an annual action plan for 2025, and that's the actual activities that the city will fund to address those high priority needs with its 2025 allocations. So just to kind of get a little bit more detail about the consultations that we carried out in late January and early February, we met with various organizations across the community, including the Housing Authority, the Redevelopment Authority, the Continuum of Care leadership, which is basically the homeless providers within the city. We talked to various homeless service providers. We talked to affordable housing providers and advocates, Small Business Development Center, neighborhood groups. We also conducted an online survey going citywide for various folks in the community who were unable to make one of our public meetings to actually provide input to the plan online. And then really important, we also carried out a persons with lived experience survey. And what that is really we developed a very pointed survey that we worked with the shelters and their case managers to get input from persons who are currently homeless or persons with previously homeless to provide input on their needs within the process and what they're experiencing. And so the idea was really to get a broad-based input from various stakeholders within the community to help identify these key priority needs. We also, like I said, carried out 2 public needs meetings back in January and early February. Again, another opportunity for citizens to provide their input on needs within the city for the next 5 years. So just a kind of overview of the things that we found throughout the planning process. So we reviewed the 2024 point in time survey, and that revealed 378 homeless individuals in emergency shelters and 76 unsheltered individuals. 30% of the households in Erie experience cost burden, paying more than 30% of their income towards housing costs. The inventory of affordable and accessible units is insufficient to meet the needs of the city of Erie residents. Length of stay in emergency shelters increased, and that was identified through our Persons with Lived Experience survey, and they are saying that shelters are at capacity and is a need to address that shelter capacity issue. Some of the barriers identified to housing include lack of inventory, criminal history, and poor rental history. Financial resources for rental application fees, security and utility deposits, and arrear payments were also kind of barriers for folks to get into affordable units. And the subpopulations with increased needs since the last 5 years when we did this planning process include elderly, youth, chronically homeless, and large families. The online survey, we had a total of 228 total responses. Of the 149 responses to the question asking persons to prioritize a list of housing activities, housing for families with children was the highest ranked item. 151 persons responded to the question asking them to rank a list of economic development initiatives, and job creation retention was the top priority, followed by workforce development and employment programs. There was 150 responses to the question asking them to rank a list of special needs and services, and that revealed mental health services, early childhood education, and healthcare services being the top 3 categories that were mentioned as needed. Of the 148 responses asking to rank a list of public infrastructure initiatives, and the highest priorities were road improvements and reconstruction. Affordable housing was the most often cited priority, followed by economic and workforce development, including job training, and job creation. So, as I said, the strategic plan, we took all this information, the data, the census data, the information from the surveys and the public needs meetings, and helped put together the city's strategic plan goals for the next 5 years. And as you can see, we've come up with the following items as the goals for the next 5 years. And they include such things as providing homeowner rehabilitation assistance, providing rental rehabilitation assistance, creating new affordable rental housing, increased homeownership, provide homeless housing and services, improve public facilities and infrastructure, provide public services, code enforcement, demolish dilapidated structures, economic development, and finally, revitalizing the central business district, i.e. downtown. I'm going to turn it over to Deb at this time to talk about the annual action plan for 2025.
Thank you, Bill. The FY 2025 funding allocations, these are proposed numbers. We do not know what our allocation is going to be, so we used fiscal year 2024 numbers as a base. If you look at the $2,855,318, on your handout, it actually says $2,878,735. This includes $23,417.06 of various program income. It also, that amount is also decreased by $115,446. And fiscal year 2015 through 2017, the Inspector General did an audit for the Department of Economic and Community Development, and they found that there was unsupported backup or information for various costs that were not eligible. And so the City of Erie has to actually repay those funds back. And this is actually reducing our allocation by that $115,446,000. We chose to repay it back in one lump sum. The Home Investment Partnership Home Program, $764,318. Emergency Solutions Grant is $267,205. I do want to just mention, as far as that $115,446 that the city grant is going to be reduced by, this was not part of the current administration. It was part of the administration before Mayor Schimber took office. And that is actually it for the proposed funding amounts. I'm going to now turn it over to Dave Dieter, who will actually provide information on projected uses of funds for CDBG, ESG, and home. Dave.
Thank you, Deborah, and good evening, everyone. I will start with the proposed funding for the Community Development Block Grant Program. For the public service category, we are proposing $769,789,000. For housing, which includes city housing rehab and Erie Redevelopment Authority housing rehab, a total of $221,000. For public facilities and improvements, $1,201,964.82. For special economic development, $114,918. And for general administration, $571,063. For the Home Investment Partnership or Home Program, we are proposing to allocate $500,000 to the Boston store for rental rehabilitation, $200,000 to the East Side Renaissance rental rehabilitation proposal, and $64,318 for admin, which totals $764,318. I should also note that by HUD requirement, 15% of the home allocation must be set aside for Community Housing Development Organization activities, or CHODO. The Hands Boston Store project does qualify as a CHODO activity. For the Emergency Solutions Grant Program, the numbers that we are projecting are identical to last year. Just to reiterate, we do not have our allocations yet for the fiscal year 25 program, so we just plugged in last year's numbers. But I do want to note that the allocation of ESG funds is based on a ratio that includes the daily average number of beds provided per facility to the daily average provided by all facilities times the amount of ESG funds available for emergency and transitional shelters. 60% of the ESG funds are allocated for the emergency and transitional shelters. 32.5% is allocated for rapid rehousing, and 7.5% is allocated for admin. I will now turn it back over to Bill, who will review the schedule for preparation, adoption, and submission of the 5-year consolidated plan and fiscal year 2025 annual plan.
Thanks, Dave. And just one other note, as I said, that we don't know the allocations yet. We anticipate receiving the allocations from HUD sometime in mid-May. And so just wanted to let everyone know that we should have the allocations sometime in May from HUD. So just a kind of overview on our next steps in the process. We are currently have the plan on what we call public display for 30 days, and that started on April 11th. Again, we would encourage folks to review the plan that's on display and provide any additional comments that they have on the plan. We're required to have a second public meeting for the general public to come out and provide any input that they may have on the plan, and that's what we're doing here today. We're having our second public meeting. We had one this morning at 10, and this is a second required one. We're hoping then that we'll provide the Consolidated Plan and Annual Action Plan to City Council for adoption on or about May 21st. And then assuming the city receives its allocation by that time, we'll be submitting to HUD shortly thereafter. Again, just to reiterate, we cannot submit the plans to HUD until the city receives its allocation and it gets direction from HUD on when to submit. So again, we're targeting the end of May or early June, but that could slide based on when the allocations are received and when HUD provides the city with direction in terms of submitting their plans to HUD for review and approval. So I'll turn it back over to Deborah regarding ground rules for the public comment period.
Thank you, Bill. At this time, if you'd like to give public comments, we ask that you come to the podium, state your name, your organization's name, and feel free to give your comments. So if you'd like to come now, please come to the podium now.
Good evening, distinguished members of this panel, Renee, Dave, Debbie, Renee, and sir, I forgot your name.
Bill.
But it was very important for me to get up, and I really, first of all, want to thank the CDBG for their going the extra mile. We were given the opportunity, thanks to this grant, to help new business owners try to fulfill their life's dream. And you know, sometimes they think what they see at the end is how it began. A lot of money in the pocket, you know, going on vacation, they forget and they don't see when you start. The 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, the kids mad with you, the wife or the husband mad with you. But it takes a team sacrifice. And why I wanted to start off thanking y'all, because I'm dealing with the students, but with the paperwork, CBGG came and helped us, you know, fill in the voids of what we needed to do. And I wanted to thank y'all because y'all went the extra mile. But now let me get to what we do. My name is Floyd Hull. I'm a mentor and instructor for the Achievers Entrepreneur Hub, 930 Liberty Street. We are doing our third cohort right now. We're blessed to start several businesses that have sustained in Erie. And with economic growth, daycare, we got 3 daycares going. And we do a daycare, so we feeding our competitors. But it's a community. All of us growing together, even though we're doing a daycare, it's enough for everybody to eat. We got a dance studio, a person teaching music lessons. We have 2 guys that went out and started their own insurance business. We had a young lady that her dream was to be a handy lady, you know, going in and repair. Her dream was, you know, sometime when you're an elderly woman or you're a woman by yourself, you might not want a man coming in and fixing your house. And I thought that was unique. And Sherry Extra, she did it. She learned and she's trained. And she was in our first cohort. And she's still successful today, you know. And I want to thank y'all for allowing us the opportunity to be able to teach them. And even though my first cohort, I'm still their mentor. The second cohort, I'm still their mentor. Third cohort, of course, I'm in process in their mentor. But when you run a business, problems come up. And I have said 24 hours a day, call me. And I meant that. Because their success is our success, which is our community's success. So from all the businesses, and I didn't name them all, landscaping, cleaning services, internet repair, a retail Max Hat Shop. We got a restaurant open on 601 Brown Avenue. But it was only through what CBDG gave us, we was able to help them. And I'm here for them today. And I want to thank y'all, and we're going to keep trying to be success and help our economy and Erie grow thanks to your support and successful businesses. Is there any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Floyd.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Liz Reyes, and I'm the Neighborhood Resource Team Leader for the Love Your Block program through the City of Erie. Thank you, everyone, for continuing to provide support to the crucial organizations that support and lift our neighbors and neighborhoods in the City of Erie. As you are well aware, there are currently hundreds of Erie residents living in or near housing that is defined as being in one of several stages of decay and disrepair. Since the start of Love Your Block, we have worked side by side with residents who currently reside in some of our most unstable neighborhoods. These areas of our city have been disenfranchised for decades through redlining legislation and disinvestment. None of these neighborhoods are supported by formalized community organizations, making them particularly vulnerable to misinformation, distrust, and disengagement. Our model is formed by four things: deliberating with residents and community partners through face-to-face meetings and events, researching all of the most current neighborhood plans, survey results, and city strategic plans, discovering and implementing value-driven, data-informed solutions and best practices in planning the mini-grant program, and continuing to meet with internal departments and external stakeholders and partners. These efforts are guided our decision to launch the Small Home Repair and Neighborhood Cleanup Mini Grants. Small home repair grants include porch painting, power washing, landscaping, and new handrails, mailboxes, and address numbers. In 2024, we learned there was a deep need for the removal of large items, electronics, and tires. Residents face many barriers, including mobility challenges, transportation, and language barriers to make it to the city's recycling events. We then prioritize hosting large-scale dumpster cleanups in neighborhoods and inviting neighbors to get rid of their large items, trash, tires, electronics, and more. We found these events were a huge success, and there are ongoing requests for them still to this day. In the past 3 years, Love Your Block has completed 94 small home repair projects, saved residents over $183,000 in labor costs, engaged 483 resident volunteers, collected over 17 tons of trash and debris, and completed 677 new repairs and features. As we plan for the future, funding is crucial. Love Your Block is designed to bridge the divide between the lack of capacity and the need to connect residents to home repair funding and other city resources like the large item pickup service. Where we invest our resources is where we display our value. So I thank you all for your dedication, and I hope we are granted the opportunity to expand our support and resources to additional underserved areas this year and build grassroots relationships with those residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Good evening, Susanna Faulkner, not representing any particular organization, here as a concerned citizen. I was looking for some clarity on the written comment feedback. I had seen online that it said May 10th as a deadline, but then I was watching this morning and heard that it was May 20th. Could that possibly be clarified?
Well, May 10th is the 30-day comment period. May 20th is a council meeting, right?
So you said May 10th is what now?
The deadline for the public to submit feedback.
Correct.
So yes, the plan went on display on April 11th, and so
Right.
there's a 30-day comment period.
Okay.
And so if you'd like to submit comments, you can do that at that time. Just be aware that we have not received our funding from HUD yet, and so even if the 30-day comment period is over, we won't be submitting our plan until we know what our actual allocation is. And so if you want to submit comments, you can still submit comments.
And how can those comments be submitted?
You can send email, or you can give us a hard copy draft, Yeah, my email address
Yep.
is up there. You
Okay.
can send them to me.
Okay, understood. When I was reading the notice about this, it was saying it had the in-person address, so I wasn't sure if there was a digital option as well, but emails are acceptable
Absolutely.
as feedback as well. Great. And the deadline for that is the 10th.
Yep, May 10th.
May 10th. Okay. I recognize that this, I'm going to be talking more about process than about what individual funding is. I recognize that the 30 days was met. I personally did not see anything on social media. And today when it was posted on social media, it was only posted, the usual graphic that's posted a week ahead of time was only posted today about tonight's meeting. So I don't know if
So there
how
was
that
actually an
happens.
ad that was put in the newspaper concerning
Right.
the process, the next public hearings, and that was on April 3rd.
Third, I think.
I think it was April 3rd. This information, as far as the public hearing and things, it is on the City of Erie's website.
I saw that
We
there.
are not required by HUD to put it on social media, but it's still on the City of Erie's website.
Yes.
And so when we have public meetings, they are put on Facebook Live, I believe. But we did meet the requirement as far as posting it in the newspaper, and it is on the City of Erie's website if you want to look there.
Right, and that's where I found it, and I understand that the requirements have been met. However, there's 4 of us here, and I think there were 7 this
There
morning,
was, and
which is
so,
disappointing.
well, maybe it is, but actually the plan with the proposed numbers were on the website with the consolidated plan and the annual plan. And so maybe those organizations that maybe saw what proposed amount they were going to receive were satisfied with that, and maybe that's why they didn't show up.
That could
I
be
don't
one
know.
reason. I also would assume that a 168-page document is very difficult for some folks to read through.
So the document, a hard copy, is available at the 3 public centers,
And
as
the
well as
library.
the Blasco Library. You can also come here. So it's available in hard copy as well.
Yes, I'm just saying 165 pages might be difficult
Well,
for some
it's the
folks.
5-year consolidated plan and the annual plan, and we want to make sure that we get everything in the plan that is important to the citizens of the City of Erie.
Exactly. I don't have any further questions, but I do have further comment. Am I able to continue? Great. So I understand that the requirements were met. However, the outreach is not necessarily reaching people. When I quickly reached out to people today, they didn't realize it was today. There's a lot going on, understandably so. So I understand the requirements have been met. However, this does not feel like sufficient feedback for a 5-year plan of how we are going to spend our federal money. More importantly,
Let me just make one comment as far as outreach. As Bill explained, there was a whole lot of outreach. There were stakeholder meetings, there was focus group meetings, there
I'm
were
not
public
talking about
hearings.
that process, and also I understand and I've engaged in this whole process. I'm talking specifically about these public meetings right now. Because I've been a part of the stakeholder process, I've been on the city council side of things, I've been on the organization side of things of applying, and I'm here as a concerned citizen today to give a comment.
Okay, let me also just mention as far as for organizations, I guess, who want to come, we can't make people come to public hearings. We offer those. At one point in time, we didn't have evening meetings, and so to get individuals, organizations, concerned citizens out, that's why we offer the 6 p.m. meeting. And so our best way of getting it out is word of mouth, having information at the libraries, the community centers, having it on the City of Erie's website. I mean, if you believe there are other avenues that we should be getting the word out, please, give us that
Social media would be
suggestion.
great. Social media would be fantastic for that. It's great that we have a Department of Communications within the mayor's office to have the capacity to do that. That's usually where I don't get the newspaper. I do check the city website as I think to, but I get most of my city news from social media and from Facebook.
Okay.
So, continuing on, I watched this meeting's live stream, and the folks who came up to speak advocating for their organizations, which is usually how this seems to have been held for the last few years. What I am shocked by, and I can understand being in municipal government at this time when there is all these federal funding cuts, must be a nightmare, I can only imagine. However, I am slightly shocked with the projections for 2025, given the draft budget that was released by the federal government, by the President's office last Thursday. So I'm not sure if you have all read the memo from the Office of Management and Budget from May 2nd, but it proposes a 44% cut to HUD funding across the board. It is a decrease in all 9 sections of HUD funding. So I'm disappointed as a concerned citizen that has not been mentioned at all. Or taken, and I know it's guesswork, right? Every year it's guesswork.
It's for fiscal year 2026 that's projected for, so we're not even in 26. The 2025 was held steady at last year's allocation level, so that was projected for 2026. And that's the skinny budget. There's no priorities been set by Congress yet. That was just the skinny budget that was released by the Office of Management and Budget. So we don't know what those allocations are, but you're absolutely correct on the 44%.
Okay. So it is just concerning, recognizing how much of a lifetime these programs are. I have worked at organizations that have administered CDBG funds. I have volunteered. I've been on the board of organizations that use these funds. And so to think that we're going to be facing a skinny budget with potentially a 44% budget cut for HUD, and then we also are going to decrease the city amount that we are allocating by over $115,000 to repay for things that happened, it seems like a decade ago. How are we going to survive as a city? How are these programs going to stay funded? Like what are we going to do? That is such enormous cuts to organizations that literally provide housing, first-time job, home repair, emergency shelter. Like some of our most critical services are not only going to be cut by federal funding, but also we're repaying in a lump sum $115,000. So I have a lot of concern over that and that not being mentioned in these meetings, and that's my own comment. That doesn't have to go anywhere. That's just me mentioning that as a comment. Lastly, as I have been bringing up for the last 2 years, every year there are unspent HUD funds or HUD funds that are repurposed or returned, or not returned because it's a reimbursement grant, but not able to be spent in the way they were originally meant to be allocated. Last year, that total was around $1 million. In the past, it's been around $900,000. That those funds have then gone back to be repurposed for street paving and reconstruction. I've asked several times what will prevent that from happening this year, especially in a year where we're facing a tighter budget. So I am hoping that that is still considered, given that at least for the last 2 years, or last 3 years, I believe that nearly 20% of those funds which have gone unspent have then gone to street repaving and repurposing. So when we are in this era of skinny budget, federal government money being slashed, as well as having to take $115,000 out of these essential services to repay back a debt from a decade ago, I really hope we're thinking more strategically and not acting as business as usual, because this certainly is not as a business as usual time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to provide public comment? No?
Remind everyone to sign in. Remind everyone to sign in.
Oh, okay. Could everyone make sure that they signed in at the sign-in sheet?
And again, if you have any additional comments, we have you can email comments to Deborah, and her contact information is above. So,
Thank you all for coming out tonight.
thank you.
Have a good evening.